In the spring of 1941, James Stewart stood on the stage of the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles, holding an Academy Award for Best Actor. He was 32 years old, the most beloved face in American cinema. He smiled for the cameras. He said thank you. And then, quietly, he went home and started making plans to leave everything behind. Stewart had already tried to enlist before Pearl Harbor. He walked into a recruitment office and volunteered. They turned him away, 10 pounds underweight. Any other man in Hollywood would have accepted that as permission to stay home. Not Stewart. He hired a trainer, changed his diet, and came back weeks later. His studio, MGM, tried to stop him. He was too valuable a commodity to risk in a real war. Stewart didn't care. He told them he was going anyway. He started as a private, $21 a month, no special treatment. He flew training missions, passed exams, moved up the ranks by earning it. By 1944, he was a captain leading the 703rd Bombardment Squadron in England, responsible for hundreds of men. Pilots called the B-24 Liberator the Flying Coffin. At 25,000 feet, the temperature inside the cockpit dropped to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Oxygen masks froze to your face. Fear was constant. Stewart flew 20 combat missions over Nazi-occupied Europe, Brunswick, Frankfurt, the chemical plants of Ludwigshafen, one of the most heavily defended targets in Germany. The missions averaged 8 to 10 hours. Any second, the plane beside you could become a fireball. On one mission over Schweinfurt, he watched his formation get torn apart by flak fighter attacks. He brought his plane home. Many others didn't come back that day. He never spoke publicly about what that felt like. Stewart came home in late 1945. He was 37. His hair had gone gray. His hands shook. For months, he barely left his house. He turned down scripts. He didn't know if acting still made sense, if pretending to feel things mattered after what he had actually felt. Then Frank Capra called. He had a story about a man named George Bailey who gives everything to others and ends up with nothing, who stands on a bridge on Christmas Eve and decides his life wasn't worth living. Stewart said yes. In the bar scene, where George Bailey buries his face in his hands and prays out loud, Stewart did something the script didn't ask for. He cried, not actor tears, something real. Capra didn't stop the take because he didn't know what he was watching. What Stewart was doing was finally releasing what he had buried in those cockpits. The fear, the guilt, the grief for men who never came home. George Bailey's breakdown was Jimmy Stewart's breakdown. The audience felt it because it was real. Stewart stayed in the Air Force Reserve for the rest of his career. In 1959, he became a Brigadier General, the highest military rank ever achieved by an American actor. He almost never wore the uniform in public. He refused to use his service for publicity. When people called him a hero, he would say the real heroes were the men who didn't come back. He said this so often it started to sound like a script. But the people who knew him said he meant it every single time. James Stewart died on July 2nd, 1997. At his funeral, the Air Force flew a missing man formation over the church. 4 jets, one breaking away and climbing alone into the sky. We watch his films every Christmas and feel something we can't quite explain. Now you know where that feeling came from. It came from 25,000 feet above Germany in the winter of 1944. I don't think I did anything special. I just did my job. James Stewart.